Hey everyone, welcome to the Modern Leadership Podcast. I'm Tim Nolan. And today's episode, I want to kind of go over something that I was talking about last week with a group I was working with. And we were talking about people who are defensive. And in the group, I asked, hey, and these are all managers, directors. And so I asked them, anyone here have someone who gets defensive when they get feedback? And quite a few people, most in fact, raised their hands. So I was like, okay, well, let's talk about this for a minute. And one of the first things to look at is this just my view based on the folks I've worked with, um, is that I feel that people today are more likely to be defensive compared to 5-10 years ago, if not more. And I think part of that is more of a societal trend where people are they're a little more sensitive, as someone said in the group last week. They're a little more sensitive, and I think that with that being said, is to be mindful of that, of course. But I think in order to effectively lead people, they need to know that they're going to get a lot of feedback. You're going to get feedback, and most of it will be good, but some of it is are areas of opportunity, things that you need to work on. And when I give you that feedback, you need to do it. And you can ask questions if you want examples. But at the end of the day, when action is needed, then that's something that you need to do. And I think sometimes and I've heard this several times with managers, is that I think the pendulum has swung in terms of employee empowerment, and I think it's swung too far. So if we look at like a continuum, if we look at traditional approaches, the manager is the boss, the manager is the leader. You do what you're told, and that's it. Maybe you're not asked for feedback and asked for suggestions. You're just given tasks to do, and you complete them. And no news is good news. And then we look at the other side of the spectrum, the pendulum, is that today's managers are realizing that the needs of today's workforce have really changed, and because of that, they really need to make sure that they're checking in, they're asking questions. Hey, do you need support? How can I support you? But I think through that, the pendulum has swung too far in that manner, because a couple managers I've been talking to recently, they use this like very similar language, kind of like, tell me how can I support you? Let's say there's a challenge, and the manager's like, how can I support you in this? And so this one manager was talking about this really kind of challenging staff they have. So the staff has said they want to move up, they want to get promoted. So as a manager, when you hear that, that's always a green light. Okay, this person wants to get promoted. I can leverage some really good things with them, give them some good stretch activities, usually very good things. So this individual who apparently wants to move up, and so the manager started, wanting to meet with them, kind of talking about that. And then in their conversations, the manager was had the impression that, they felt like they're doing a really good job in their current role, when in fact they saw it differently. Not that they weren't doing pretty well, but again, they had areas of opportunity, things that they can get better in. We all do. But when they start having those conversations, the individual would either get a little prickly whenever they were given any feedback, contrary to how they viewed themselves, or would maybe blame other people. And so really just at times being defensive, but at other times really being unaware of where they're at. And just because somebody wants to move up, it doesn't mean they're a good candidate. And in order to be a good candidate for any kind of promotion, and one needs to be aware, needs to have awareness. And a really good indicator, if someone has awareness, is they know that there are things that they can do better in. And because if someone's presenting like, I got this all figured out, I'm on top of everything, that to me is usually a red flag. I mean, unless their performance is really that exceptional, but even still, there's always areas of opportunity for everyone. And so I think part of the thing to look at is when you are talking to your staff, and of course, you want to find out what the challenges are. You want to ask good questions, not assume and jump into it. But it's vital to create a culture of feedback on your team. And so it starts when someone starts. So when you have a new employee, you're going through that onboarding, and that first week is the most critical period of time in someone's tenure. So when you're meeting with them, it's in addition to going over whether organizational stuff, things about their job, you know, getting on with their teammates, learning about different things, but you also want to discuss with them, hey, Tim, something that might be a little different for you compared to other places that you worked at is we have a culture of feedback here. And what that means is I'm going to work really diligently to give you a lot of feedback. And most of it will be positive. So, I want to catch you doing well, really acknowledge things you're doing, recognize good stuff. But I'm also going to give you performance feedback. And when I give you performance feedback, that's when I need, those are times when I need you to look inward and say, okay, why am I provided with this feedback? And what are some areas of opportunity for me, and implement those things. Now, of course, if you have questions, I want you to ask them. But again, you're going to get a lot of feedback here. So being defensive, that's not going to work. So just whatever, again, if you have questions, and listen, sometimes when we get feedback, it may be a little challenging to hear, maybe unflattering, and maybe going against how you feel you're doing in an area. But that's how we grow. And that's why we have a culture of growth here, because we have a culture of feedback. And in order to successfully implement this with your teams, you need to be comfortable providing feedback to folks. And a lot of people are not, and especially from what I found, is a lot of people are not. And they may say they're doing certain things, but if you have a culture of feedback, you are fine going to people. Again, start with the positives. That's probably 80, 85%, 90% of your feedback. And just, hey, I really like, and being very specific. So you're building that bank account up, if you will, but also saying, hey, Tim, I noticed a meeting you're in recently, and there's a couple things that I saw in there I want to kind of talk to you about. And when those conversations happen, it's important that you lay the framework, the foundation, that they're going to be receptive to what you have to say. They may ask questions, and not that you have all the answers, but as their manager, if you're noticing something and it's a performance opportunity, then you need to share that, and they need to process it in their own way, but they need to move to implementation pretty quickly. And so I think that if you establish that kind of culture on your team, you're going to get people who are much more likely to either ask for feedback, or B, when they do receive feedback from you, to be in a better position to implement it without challenging, without trying to come up with excuses. But you have to create that. You can't expect people to walk in the door and just be like, yeah, give me feedback. Again, a lot of people are very sensitive. They're very sensitive to that. But if you create that culture on your team, and do it from the standpoint of a growth culture, that you're going to get better here, regardless of how long you stay, you're going to get better. But we have a culture of feedback, and you need to be okay with that. It's going to be a little bit different. And so another thing I like to add too, about if you really want people to be receptive to feedback, they need to be reflective. And there's really like a 4-step process. It takes a little bit to implement, but the step process involves, number one, starting with the positives. And so you lay that foundation of that. It's really important. Talk about reflection, and it's really important for us to acknowledge how we contribute to the outcomes of situations that we are involved in. So again, if you're involved in it, and so let's say something good happens. Let's say a project goes well. You guys complete it early, high quality, everyone's happy. Then you want to look at, how did I contribute to that? What was my role in this project being successful, right? And so this is what you do. You can talk about something for you, like, hey, I was in a meeting recently, and it was a really good meeting. And I was thinking to myself, why was such a good meeting compared to other ones? And well, I was interested in the topic. I was taking notes. I came in prepared because I thought the topic was interesting. And I was asking questions and really engaging with everyone in the group. So this would be a good example to share with your team. Now, then what you should do is you take that to the next step. And that's where you say to them, okay, um, during our next one-on-one meeting, I want you to bring in an example of something positive that occurred, positive outcome, and how you contributed to that during our next one-on-one meeting. So you can send out a reminder to them. So when they come in, have them talk about it, maybe ask some questions like, hey, tell me more about that. What did you do there? Oh, okay. This serves several purposes. Number one, you're getting to find out some of their mental model, how they approach things, but also you're learning more about the intricacies of how they complete their work. And this can help you actually do better performance evaluations and provide feedback down the road too. And so then you move into the next phase. And that's where you look at reflecting on something that did not have the intended outcome. And so that you would share that too. So start with the group discussion, a team. So we talk about the positive one. I want to share with you something I was part of recently that had a less than ideal outcome. And maybe it's a training you went to. Maybe it's, again, a meeting. Hey, I went to this other meeting last week. I got to tell you, I thought this meeting was like such a waste of my time. And I was thinking about it afterwards and reflecting on it. Like, what was so bad about this meeting? And then I was thinking, like, how did I contribute to this being a bad meeting? Why couldn't it have been better? And looking at, I didn't think the topic was interesting from the beginning. I didn't come prepared, not like the other meeting I was sharing with you. Didn't come prepared. I really didn't take notes. I was playing on my phone. I just couldn't wait to get out of there. And so I was just reflecting on that. I could have done some things differently there. I definitely could have, taken notes, be more engaged, and really just try to make it the best for me. And then you'd move that once again. All right, team. So during our next one-on-one meeting, I want you to bring in an example, something that you contributed to recently that had a less than ideal outcome. It could be negative or just not quite what you thought it was going to be. But more importantly, how did you contribute to that? And so when they come in, hopefully they bring in that example, and you're like, okay, tell me more about that, and then start asking, like, hey, what do you think you could have done differently there? What are a couple of things you could have done differently? Have a good, robust discussion. So be prepared to ask questions around that. And then lastly, after going through those phases, then you want to move into doing it more organically. So just as things are coming up, you get into the mode of asking folks, like, okay, so I know there was a challenge here. What was your role in that? How did you contribute to that? And not that you're to blame for the outcome. I'm just curious in terms of your thought process. How did you contribute to that since you were involved? And then by doing that and going through that 4-step process, you're much more likely to get people who, number one, do that, and they'll start doing it on their own, but also people who are less defensive. So once you do start talking to them, you do start having them look inward, where they're better able to say, yeah, you know what? I could have done a better job here. I was supposed to have this done on Friday. I didn't get it to them until Wednesday of next week. And I didn't communicate my challenges or why or ask for help. So when you start getting that from folks, then you're elevating the performance of your workforce. But they're not going to come in with this more than likely out of the gates, out of the box. So that's why you have to create that. And it starts with a culture of feedback, you being comfortable, but creating that framework too, to get people to be reflective. And again, the more reflective they can be, the better their performance is going to be as well. So this will serve you in a multitude of ways and help elevate your leadership growth or even promotions in the future. But again, self-reflection through taking ownership and accountability, not being defensive. So creating that framework, you can definitely do that. So again, the July Highly Effective Managers training is sold out. I'm doing another one starting on October 16th. If you or anyone else you know may be interested in this 12-month program that over 7,000 people have participated in, I want you to head over to highlyeffectiveorganizations.org and register. And of course, any questions or you want to see a demo, send me an email, Tim at highlyeffectiveorganizations.org, and we'll set it up. Again, Modern Leadership Podcast, Tim Nolan. Have a great week.